If all women were like, no, I do not accept this. And when this happens to me, I will fight back. Then I think that's the only way you get to change.
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we get real about what it takes to succeed, whether it's in business, life, or both. I'm talking to game-changing and visionary women who've broken barriers, built empires, and redefined success on their own terms. They'll share their strategies, secrets, and the no BS advice you need to rise to the top. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice, also known as JJ. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Today, we have Amy Nelson. She is the founder of Riveter and a social advocate, and we're going to get all into that. Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am good. I'm very excited about this. I know that we could talk for like literally hours because there's so much that has happened with you in particular in the past, 6 years.
Yeah.
But in general, let's start from the beginning. And let's talk about the Riveter. Like, what is it? How you kind of got there?
Yes. So like you, I started my career as a lawyer. And I worked for big firms as a litigator for a decade. And then when I became a mother, I very much wanted a career, but found the demands of client services on the litigation side to be challenging, right? With little kids. And I mean, it's a client services job like any other client services.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'll go in-house, and I went in-house as a lawyer, and I didn't love that because when you're a lawyer who's in the courtroom fighting and doing front page news litigation, I think it can be a really hard shift to go in-house, which is mostly like managerial. And I'm not really built for an office, I learned. And so then I thought maybe I would, just kind of like do my own legal practice on the side and figure things out. And I was going to classes at WeWork, and it was all men, who were starting businesses. And I kept thinking, like, where in the hell are women? And so instead of starting a legal practice, I thought I would build a place for women. And that at the time in 2017 manifested in real life event and co-working spaces where we primarily served women who were pivoting from corporate America to work on their own. And it was a rocket ship of a ride. The Riveter went from an idea to raising 30 million in venture capital, hiring 150 employees, building 10 massive spaces across the country. And then the pandemic happened, and it was over in a flash. And at that point, I had to ask, like, what is the Riveter, right? Because the business idea I'd come up with, I couldn't operate. And luckily, we had built a following digitally too, to what we were doing, because a lot of women wanted to talk about pivoting, and no one was really doing it in a bigger way. And so I built a newsletter of around 100,000, and that's what I have today. Is the Riveter is a digital media company where we talk with women about all the things to get ready to make money on your own or to lean into making money on your own. And then we do in real life events. We no longer have our physical spaces, but we do in real life events across the country at conferences, our own events. We partner with brands like AARP and do book clubs. And then we teach courses really on the skills that I think, from my experience, women really need to dig into to make money on their own when they want to or when they need to.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit, unpack some of that stuff. Like you said that all of these women were pivoting into doing stuff on their own. All of this, like, what was that from in your experience? Why were they all leaving corporate America?
Well, I mean, I think, back in 2017, I think the reasons that I was seeing and that I was talking to people and that I was reading about were that there's no flexibility. At the time, this is before remote work was really a common thing. I remember when I went in-house as a lawyer, I asked my bosses, could I work 7 to 3? I'll get the work done. I'll be on my laptop at home, but can I be home after 3? And they just, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No flexibility. Right? Yeah. And so, with a commute and small kids, I just didn't see them. And so I think it was that. I think, and I also think there's a certain point, if you really open your eyes to it and you see that you are not being paid an equal amount for equal work, you have to say fuck this.
Yeah.
Why should I be making money for other people and then not being paid the same as a male peer next to me? And the wage gap is real and it continues to be real. And I think, I don't know, I used to think, JJ, that we should be fighting to fix the wage gap, but why should I take on the unpaid labor of fighting to change that when you can go out on your own and set your own rates and make your own money.
So, so true. Hallelujah. And I also think that the wage gap, they say it's It's 80 cents to a dollar. I totally don't believe that. I think it's more like 40 to 50, because I think you're comparing apples to oranges. If you just compare salaries, maybe, but we don't have purview into their equity and their LTIP and all the other perks and their signing bonus and all the other stuff that they're getting that we're not. And I'm seeing it.
Yeah. And then you talk about like on the entrepreneurial side, on the VC side, like women don't even get to the starting line. Right.
Yeah.
And so like they don't even have that chance.
We're not even in the parking lot, man.
And it's funny, like this isn't funny, but it's like people ask me a lot because I raised a lot of money in venture as a first time founder. And I did it pregnant mostly. And people are like, how do you think you did it? I'm like, well, I had a great business idea and I have very good experience. But also like I worked on Wall Street for a long time in rooms full of men and I knew how to act like them in a way. Like it's all, and it's anyway, it's just corporate America is weird. Like it's weird and it's not really changing, even though women have been there and doing probably most of the work for 40, 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah.
We're much less. Yes, exactly. Okay. So, you saw that all happening and then, look, you just touched on how you raised 30 million. I don't even know that. And it's just gone backwards from there, right? It's like, it's unbelievable. It
just doesn't budge. And now I think we're in this like cultural landscape where no one's going to even pretend to give lip service to it anymore. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like screw it. Yeah. We don't have to, so we're not going to.
And the real thing is that a lot of businesses like received this money, went away during COVID, right? Women often raise things that build more communities, CPG, all those things were really difficult during that time. Yeah. And then we can just say, oh, well, it's the ladies. They just can't do it.
Yeah. They just can't hack it.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah. And the fact that like remote work, I mean, do you remember that time when that guy was on, I don't know, some news channel and his kids like got into the room and those little like zippy things?
I totally remember.
He was just like mortified. Everybody's like, oh my God. Now it's like, my kid pops in Zooms all the time.
Also, all the time. Yeah, my kids are.
Why did we think we were so important as corporate America that we had to have two totally different lives?
I don't know. And I think about this a lot, right? Because like, this might sound very simplistic, but I think so much of the world we've created is just so dumb. And it's like, it's built on this ceremony that doesn't need to.
You heard it first. The world is dumb.
but it is, right? It's like, so many of like the rituals around work or how seriously we take things. And like, there are people who are curing cancer and that is very important. But like what I'm doing, it's important, but like, and it's important and I'm serving people and my life is important. And I'm not like I'm not curing cancer. Like I'm doing something that's important and good in the world, but like there doesn't need to be ceremony around it. Right?
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Exactly. It's one part of your life.
Yeah.
It's not your whole identity.
No, it certainly isn't. And I worry about people who make work their entire identity, because especially in today's world, because I think we were raised thinking like the 9 to 5 was the safe path, right? Like a corporate job that is not true now.
Yeah.
There are tens of thousands of federal employees, of Americans who started the year as federal employees who are no longer. And that was not their plan. And then there's like Microsoft just laid off like 3% of their workforce. Like last I looked, Microsoft stock was doing pretty well. Like it's doing well. Like it's just, it doesn't even, I think it's very unpredictable now.
Everybody used to be the safe bet. And what's so funny about this podcast is, the one thing I ask everybody at the end is, what's the worst advice you ever received? And there's always a theme. There's like 3 different themes. One of them is like, take the safe choice, go in-house. And doing what I do and what I've done for the last 6 years representing women, I'm telling you right now, corporate America is not the safe choice unless you want to shut the fuck up, not say a word, do exactly what they want, take the salary that they give you, and that's it.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. And that is my lived experience.
Yes. Lived experience, lots. And they're not afraid to fire you for retaliatory, because they, for the most part, don't think you're ever going to push back.
Yes. And I think one of the most important skills that we as Americans need to learn is how to push back, and how to push back effectively against people in corporations who have far more power than us. Yeah. Because there's this other narrative that we're being taught in America that like, you can't fight the powerful. Yes, you can. Like I am living proof of that. And like, my family has been in a battle with Amazon for years and we have won multiple times, but like you can fight back. You just have to be smart and strategic because you have less money and you have less power.
Yeah.
But like if all women, if we're talking about women, like if all women were like, no, I do not accept this. And when this happens to me, I will fight back. Then I think that's the only way you get to change.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, and we'll get to the Amazon thing in a minute, but I want to get more into, and then we'll talk about all women doing this together too. But like what you're talking about in a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I think like, when I was a kid, it was like, you're going to grow up and you're going to get a job and you'll probably have one job and stay there forever. And, the goal was
pensions too.
Yeah, I know pension. My mother has a pension. She was a public school teacher. And, it's, that's not where we are. And so here's the thing, like you develop an expertise in your corporate job. Like you're an expert, right? Like you developed this for years. And you need to figure out, I think all of us need to figure out how we take that and build a platform so that when we want to or need to make money on our own, we can, right? Like your expertise is not owned by the company you work for. It is owned by you, right? And you can take it anywhere and you can do anything. And I think, so many of us, I've talked to so many women who after a forced pivot, after a layoff, or after an unexpected illness in the family or whatever, or a return to work mandate that's total bullshit that they can't fulfill, they're like, oh my God, I need to learn how to make money on my own. And they haven't built the online platform. They haven't looked at their network with the eye of like, how can I build these relationships so I can consult when I want to? And if you just do the simple things before you need to, it is a lot easier to leverage them when you want to. You can turn on the spigot on day one. And so it's just like, it creates a lot more stability internally, I think, for me. Like the fact that I know I can go make money on my own, I sleep a lot better at night than if I was like, oh my God, what if I lose my job next week? Because you might lose your job next week. Everybody might. And I don't mean to like fear monger, but I also think like we buy home insurance because our house might burn down. We buy car insurance because we might get in an accident. We buy health insurance in case we get sick. Like your insurance against a layoff or a corporation going under or whatever is to figure out how to create different revenue streams for yourself on your own. And it's doable. Everybody can do it. And I'm not talking about like multi-level marketing schemes. I'm talking about consulting, freelancing, that.
So how does somebody prepare for that?
So I think at a very base level, I think you need to figure out how to tell the world what you're good at and how you can help them, right? And then just repeat it, come hell or high water to everybody you know in different ways. And you do that through, I think online, you can do that through your LinkedIn network and really authentically building out that network. For some types of businesses, it might be like doing that on Instagram or creating like a YouTube channel or a podcast or, some sort of content property, which you can do while you work in corporate America. And with technology today, like you can do it for free, right? You can do it on the side. It's interesting and you become known as the expert in your field. And in real life, you do it by trying to get, on stage at speaking events. And if you're not on stage, go to the events, go to your industry events, spend the time, pay attention, meet people, follow up, networking, like old fashioned networking. And then actually building and maintaining those authentic relationships, right? Like, JJ, I don't call you when I need something. I call you because you're my friend and I've gotten to know you, right? But we met in a business context. And then she's amazing. And we stay in touch. And I have called you before when I needed something, but a lot of times I just touch base to be like, what's up? Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's how you do it. It's not rocket science, but there is a science to it. Right? Like it has to be intentional. It doesn't just happen without you thinking, I'm going to do it this way. It's like you go to college and you are thinking, I'm going to graduate in 4 years and I'm going to choose a major and choose my classes. Like to major in making money on your own eventually, like you need to take some concrete steps.
It's, it's so funny. Like, I teach a course about negotiating your salary and I taught it at Columbia Business School. Because I don't even remember how I got introduced to them, but I went there. They do this like during their lunch hour, like a lunch hour-ish thing when they're in classes. And they serve pizza. So, I just figured, some people will come in and they'll leave, right? So they're going to get free food. Every single person stayed, male and female both, and their minds were blown. They were like, no one teaches this. And it's so simple. right? And it's so simple to know. So like, if you're not doing that, then we're definitely not like, this is in business school too. If we're not teaching people how to go into corporate America and negotiate, we're definitely not talking about each other and what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because I know I have actual friends who go, do you know, I'm getting a new job. Who can I hire? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm looking right at you. Like, I'm a female founder and I need somebody to help me on, business strategy and business development, like doing like sponsorship or finding a celebrity. I'm like, what do you think I did?
I know.
Like, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Like, is that my fault? I don't know. I feel like I talk about it all the time, or it's like, or do I just have bad friends?
No.
But
I do think you talk. Well, it's actually something I think is really interesting. Like some people, and I think this is I think it's a rarefied air, but like some people are such well-known experts at what they do. Like JJ, people probably think like she wouldn't help me because you're so, because like you've done so many high-profile, amazing things, but there's an in between there, right? And like,
no, I get that. Some people would you? I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course I will.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is what I can do. And I prefer I do it because I'm really good at what I do, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And people need to learn how to talk about that and do it. And the other thing is I don't think these skills are just necessary for making money on your own. Like if you do this, like when you want to get a new job, you will get a better job and you will make more money.
Yeah.
Like if you were the go-to expert in your field, like you're going to get paid more the next job you get.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you do that?
I always tell women that you should always be looking for a new job. Like the second you go onto a job and they are not giving you what you want, you're looking for a new job day one.
Yeah.
And mining all the information, picking the pockets of that company to find out all the information you can possibly get while you can, while you're there. Make all the contacts,
Totally.
Yeah. Build all the goodwill. Yeah.
Yeah. Take advantage of all of it.
So you had mentioned too, like, look, you could be doing this while you're in your corporate job, right? I mean, sometimes, you're restricted so you can't do it out loud, right? Yeah. And you said using all the technology you can do for free. What are the things that you find are the most useful in helping women do that?
I think, in most industries, one of the most useful platforms we have is LinkedIn, which I think is still, there's a ton of.
I know you're a really big proponent of LinkedIn. I'm just starting.
Well, it's really interesting. So I have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok and Instagram. I have 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the most important to my career and my profession, right? It's the professional network. Like imagine, I say only 15,000 followers on LinkedIn, but like in what world in 1990 did I have access to 15,000 people to tell, hey, this is what I'm good at. This is how I can help you. You should hire me. We didn't, right? It's like, that's a huge stage and you just get to step on it and say whatever you want. And so you can experiment and try different things, but like learning how to share your message on LinkedIn and even going back, like aside from the messages you're sharing, like what does your profile say? It's your homepage, right? Like LinkedIn built you a website and you get to, and again, like even if you're in corporate America and not trying to make money on your own, you can create that expert space for yourself on LinkedIn and you should, right? And like, yes, will there be days you post something and no one responds? Yes. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. Like you're not getting kicked off LinkedIn. No one's going to think you're silly. Yeah. And I all the time, even like today, there are people who have never interacted with a post of mine on LinkedIn, but I'll meet them in real life and they're like, oh, I read everything you write. And then
I know. I get that too. It's like, I listen to your podcast all the time. I'm like, leave a review then.
I know. But a lot of people don't. They're just passive consumers. They're consuming it. Right. And so it's really important. I think it's super important to do it. And then, like if you wanted to have, I think more people should mess around on the internet with like, I'm going to start a YouTube show or I'll have a podcast because, you could go on to Zoom or you use Riverside. I use Riverside. You can have a free Riverside account. I'm a huge fan of Riverside. And you can create these little conversations or, like, and people will watch them. Yeah. And you never know who you're going to connect with from that.
It's so true. And I'm always surprised who follows my newsletter or my podcast. And like, I mean, somebody recently, I wrote something in my newsletter about giving tips and not making the first offer. And she like wrote back and was like, well, I disagree. And it feels like it's not and I was like, okay, let's talk about it, which was great.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's
being able to do that. Yeah.
That's great.
And having that dialogue.
Well, yeah. And then from there, I think this is the other thing, like when you start putting your expert content into the world, it becomes like an avalanche, right? Because for example, like you have, you have the newsletter and someone writes back, I have a disagreement. Like that could be a podcast episode. That could be content you post on LinkedIn, right? All of these things snowball into one another. And so content does not need to be anybody's full-time job. However, it is a really effective way to tell the world what you're good at.
And well, obviously as women, we've been, conditioned and groomed to be like, your opinion really doesn't matter and all. It's like, how do you get people over that hump though? It's scary to put that out there and your opinion out there.
I think you just have to do it. And I think the more you do it, it's a muscle and you just get used to doing it. This is analogous to this, but I used to be afraid to speak on stages without a podium. My leg would shake. It was just this random fear I had. And when I started the Riveter, I remember realizing pretty early on, public speaking was part of my job. And I was like, this is part of your job. You just have to do it. And the more I did it, the more that fear just went away. I just kept putting myself out there. I was afraid and just kept doing it. And now I never get afraid speaking. And so, I think it's important to just start trying to say things because everybody's opinions do matter. And we need more women's opinions in the world, desperately. And we need little girls to see us. I have 4 little girls.
Yes.
And, there's not a bone in their body where they think that their opinion doesn't matter because, I tell them it does all the time. My oldest daughter, who's 10, is struggling a little bit because she's been being called bossy for the first time. And I'm like, great. I'm like, great. I don't want you to steamroll over people, but nobody ever calls boys bossy. Right. Yeah. So if someone's calling you bossy, it means you're confident and you're sharing your opinion, keep going.
Yep. It just happened with Nico and she got into this advanced class and I saw some text from friends sounds like you're bragging. And I was like, yeah, you should brag. You should be proud of yourself. It's not to the detriment of your friends, but you both have to learn how to be a little bit maybe a little more humility in saying it, but a little, more acceptance of women doing great things. Yeah.
And there's 2 pieces to that, right? It's we need to let 10-year-old, 11-year-old girls mess around with bragging and being, what I mean? Because it takes long time to finesse humility. And I would rather my daughters err on the side of bragging than err on the side of being quiet.
Yes.
And too humble. Right. Yep. And they'll figure that out because they're young and they're allowed to mess around with that. But the second piece is, to what you said, it's not to the detriment of other girls if your daughter is taking up space or, succeeding. And this is a message I am drilling into my daughters because, they know all of my amazing friends. I call them, the excellent people around the world that I get to be friends with. And I'm like, I would not be anywhere if these women had not pulled me up or pulled me in or gave me the opportunities. It was women every step of the way. And success isn't a pie that's finite, right?
Yeah.
There's a pie and there's only 8 pieces and you better try to get one. It's infinite. And we can have all the pie in all the world, but women have to support each other. And if anybody tells you they don't, they're lying because if you just show other women that you support them, you will get it back tenfold.
Exactly. I was just, I was giving a speech at Worth conference last year and I looked up this stat that if the women in the US made the same amount as men, it would add $2 trillion to the economy. In the US alone. What?
We'd fix the deficit. Yes. Get us part of the way there. We don't need Doge. We just need women.
Yeah. So give us a little brief synopsis. If you join the Riveter, you're saying all these things, how does this manifest as, a member of the Riveter?
Yeah. Members of the Riveter, they get a monthly masterclass with me or an expert guest on, the different stages of how to figure out that white space of what am I an expert in? It's the basics of how to figure out that kind of paragraph that's really important. And then how to tell people about it on social media, how to find and leverage speaking opportunities, how to negotiate, or how to figure out what your services would be worth if you decided to go and do this. Or, tomorrow we have a session on using AI to help you with your storytelling to tell people what you're good at. Because again, you're not full-time content creators. So how do we use AI to help us get there and not sound like robots, but help us out? And so just kind of all it's 101 stuff. If you want to start a newsletter 101. And I would say, you, one of the things I bring to the world is an incredible network. And so I bring really amazing experts to Riveter members to teach these skills, lessons, opportunities. We have this summer, we have a newsletter 101 and we'll be taught by Chanel Basilio, who is this remarkable woman who has a newsletter called Growth in Reversed, where she goes and spends 20 hours a week breaking down newsletter creators that have reached 50,000 subscribers or above and how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she'll come in, and she's the most sought after speaker, and she'll come in and teach us how we can do this as thought leaders, not people who are saying, I want to have a newsletter as my full-time job, but like, how do we use newsletters to tell people what we're good at? And then how can we get people to subscribe to it?
Yeah. I love it. Amazing.
It's fun. It's really fun. I feel very lucky that I built this career.
Yeah. And then turned it around and kept it alive, by the way. Because there's no physical spaces anymore, right?
No, there aren't. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. Like, I've learned a lot of lessons in the past 5 years about pivoting myself, but then also like how far you can get if you just refuse to give up and find a different way. Right. Because I thought the Riveter was important, and I thought what we were doing was important. And like, maybe it doesn't exist as it did in 2017, but it still exists. And to be honest, like for me, I like the way it exists better today because it's more flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
Just before everyone was going into the office and et cetera. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So you do all this, and you have 4 kids, obviously, and husband, and running a household. And then, right around, I don't know what year it was, 2020, something like that.
It was like 2 weeks after the pandemic started.
That you had to take on this little, giant that we know, Amazon, that is like in every part of our lives. So I want to spend like the last 10 minutes here kind of talking about that because it is so crazy and just following you. And I'm like, this cannot be true. Like,
it's stranger than fiction. It's wild.
So just give us a little background on that. If you don't know Amy or follow her, you are going to be like, you'll be following her immediately because you'll be like, what the hell?
So my husband, his name is Carlton. He's amazing. And he is a real estate developer. And in 2012, he went to go work for a subsidiary of Amazon called Amazon Web Services. They build data centers. In 2012, like no one had ever heard of AWS or data centers, but it's where the internet lives. Most of us now are familiar with data centers as they pop up all around our country. But my husband worked at Amazon for 8 years. In his last year at Amazon, he started a company and took investors, and he was going to go out and, do real estate development on his own. My husband's Amazon employment contract is 10 pages. It's like Bezos' original contract. And it explicitly authorized Amazon employees. Like, it's not silent. It says you can start a company and seek investment so long as the investors aren't investors in Amazon. Well, 2 weeks into the pandemic, about a year after my husband had left, the FBI knocked on our door, and they accused my husband of a federal crime called private sector honest services fraud, which you've probably never heard of. There were 3 Americans indicted for this crime all of last year. It's very rare to be indicted for this crime. And they said he had criminally violated his Amazon employment terms with his new company. And I was like, what the fuck is happening, right? And my husband was like, we'll be able to sort this out. And we quickly learned that the morning the FBI came to our house, they did a national operation. And they were in Washington State and Minnesota and Tennessee and Virginia, talking to all these people that Amazon had accused, Colorado. And I was like, no, the FBI has decided something bad has happened. And we spent 4 years convincing the FBI and federal prosecutors that my husband was innocent of what Amazon was accusing him of. During that period of time, the DOJ took all of our bank accounts through a process called civil forfeiture, which I had never heard of, which allows state, local, federal governments to take your assets on the suspicion of a crime. My husband was never charged with any crime. And the DOJ took his bank accounts, my bank accounts, because we shared money, my husband's business bank accounts. They went into the law firm bank account of the lawyers my husband had paid and took the money he'd paid them. They took everything. We literally had no money in a pandemic with 4 little girls under the age of 6. And so we had to sell our house, sell our car, liquidate retirement, and fight like hell. And then when, Amazon also sued my husband for antitrust and racketeering. It doesn't even make any sense.
You're like, excuse me, who's doing that?
I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make any sense, but we had to fight that federal lawsuit after the DOJ took our money. It's an insane story. But my husband and I are both entrepreneurs, and we just hustled like hell. I took a job with a company away from the Riveter for a while to make money. My husband, kept making money, and we sold everything and we raised money and we fought. And 4 years later, we got back 85% of our assets, as long as we promised not to sue the government, which is just crazy. Everyone's like, I wouldn't have done that. And I'm like, well, put yourself in our shoes where, you have to feed your kids, you're fighting Amazon in court. Like, what are you supposed to do? Right? Like, it's not fair. None of it's fair. And we beat Amazon in civil court at summary judgment, which is before trial, which is very rare. And the judge excoriated them in a 40-page opinion saying they lied about the fact that they weren't financially damaged. They lied about my husband's employment contract. The judge ruled my husband did not even breach his employment contract in a civil case.
Why is the FBI involved in an employment breach?
Because of Jeff Bezos. I mean, I think we all want this to be something other than it is. And I think what happened to my family is just a bright light to show how powerful corporations are in America. And, it was truly like Jeff Bezos' lawyers hired former federal prosecutors to lobby their colleagues still at DOJ. And, and I have in writing an email from a top DOJ official writing to Amazon's lawyers saying, please don't worry. We have hand selected our 2 best prosecutors for Amazon's important matter. And so when you tell me there's one rule of law, like, that's total bullshit. Like, there's special treatment for special people.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's partisan, to be honest with you. I think it is. I think both parties are beholden to their corporate benefactors. And I think it has seeped into our institutions, including the DOJ, which is terrifying. Like, that's not right. It should be different. It should be very different. And I don't know how many people, I'm a lawyer, I'm a litigator. I had a special set of skills that allowed me to help my husband. I had access to a network of very good attorneys to call upon and ask for help and favors. I had a social media platform already from the Riveter. And then I decided at a certain point, I can't talk about the details of this, but I was fired from a public tech company 5 days on the job because they read about the civil forfeiture. And at that point I realized, like, it doesn't matter if I'm quiet about this or loud, like my career has been impacted too. And so I got really loud, but I knew how to use social media. So I built a TikTok from scratch that now has 250,000 followers. I'm speaking at VidCon this year in Anaheim. I'll probably be the oldest person there, but it's and if we hadn't had all of those things, could we have won? I don't know. It's right that we won, but I don't know if we could have. And so it's all to say, like, I think it's a very dangerous moment politically in this country, with our institutions. I think it's a dangerous moment with the media, because the media hasn't covered this. And you're like, it is a scandal of epic proportions. We have emails and recordings, and the major papers are like, no. And like, who buys the most ads in the major papers? Amazon.
Right.
So, there are problems. Like, there are big problems out there that we need to confront.
And like, to what end would that? You take all your money, which is nothing to him.
So, I mean, and this is like what we discovered because we were able to fight and because we were able to push back. What we discovered is that Amazon's lawyers had broken a contract with a real estate developer worth $500 million. And the only way that they could do that without paying damages is if the developer pled guilty or was found guilty of a felony, specifically a felony. And so one of the guys who'd worked with that developer had invested in my husband's new business. So Amazon went to the DOJ and said that my husband had steered deals to the real estate developer in exchange for a kickback. And they said things like, first of all, my husband had never met this investor. It's like, what, how, anyway. And then also, like, they said my husband was a primary decision maker. Like, he had some authority to do things at Amazon. My husband did not. He was not one of 9 people who signed the contracts at issue. But, Amazon broke that contract on February 19th, 2020. And the first meeting with the DOJ was 8 hours later. So you can't tell me, and they never told the DOJ about the contract they'd broken. They hid my husband's employment contract from the DOJ. So you're just like, it's all, but it's very dangerous games that very bad, unethical lawyers are playing with people's lives and freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see it in the movies, but like, this is like all real life.
And you look at, like, you can see glimpses of it everywhere. Like, look at P. Diddy, right? Like, how many people knew what he was doing?
I mean, I'm in that business. Yeah. And like, I was always told how horrible he was. I didn't see it. I know everyone who worked around him. You cannot tell me his entertainment attorney did not know that as much as he says he does not, did not. You cannot tell me that. Like, I know when, you know, working with Jay-Z for 17 years, if anything happened, I heard about it.
Yep. Of course. And you look at like Harvey Weinstein. So many people knew. Right?
Of course.
And then you look at like, and then on the flip side of it, like, it doesn't just happen in business. Like, look at President Biden. How many people knew that he had cancer?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
How many people knew what Trump did his whole life? Right? Like it's just like so
oh,
many
well,
people
yeah,
know.
that's like, yeah.
I actually like have this
No, it's
theory.
crazy. I mean, I just found out, the ridiculous Blue Origin, like whatever, that all those women had to pay other than that.
Oh yeah, they all paid, and it's
$1
just
million.
I mean, the Blue Origin thing is, and they all did because they're crazy. This is you get exactly the thing I wanted to say. Like they all did it because they want to curry favor with Jeff Bezos, and I think we have this class of like billionaire bootlickers, like people with a lot of power who won't go against billionaires, but will do anything to appease them. And that is just incredibly dangerous. And like I've worked for billionaires, I've been around billionaires, and people just won't tell them the truth about anything and will help them do anything.
Yeah. It's like artists too. I think do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will stick up for Aisha and Amanda though, who are on that. I will. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all insanity. You can follow Amy on TikTok and see it all play out. It's like you can't even write the movie.
You can't.
I mean, it's no different than the woman sitting in the Handmaid's Tale, sitting in a Georgia hospital room where her family is going to be forced to pay medical bills for a non-viable fetus with a brain dead daughter and wife. Like it's unbelievable.
It's tragic. And it's just like what I wish more than anything is such a horrifying moment for journalism right now because everything is for profit and we need journalists more than ever.
Yeah.
I think they're like the only people that can save us.
Well, that and women, if we all bond together and, start really understanding our worth, our value, how we've been underestimated, groomed to, think wanting stuff unless it's like, plastic surgery or a Birkin bag is bad,
And here's the thing, the crazy thing about like, if you are a woman and you choose to stand up and you choose to fight back, the advantage you have is that no one sees you coming.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm underestimated every day. And I'm like, it is so worth it.
I mean, it is. And it's like, it's totally, I mean, I think my husband said at a certain point, like, when will people stop underestimating you? And I was like, never, don't worry. They always will. And it becomes a strategic advantage, right? Like Amazon, their lawyers can terrify people into being quiet constantly. And they just like left me alone for too long. And then people started to listen to me. And then Amazon sent me a cease and desist. And they were like, if you don't shut down your TikTok by 5 p.m. on Friday, we're going to, and I'm like, you're going to what? Get angry? Like, what are you going to do to me?
Yeah.
And I put the cease and desist on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. Come at me, bro.
Yeah. Hi. Yes.
Oh my God. This is amazing. I will let you all follow TikTok to follow that story. So if people want to find you or, the Riveter, like how can they do that?
I would love them to. Thank you. So the Riveter is on all channels at the Riveter CO, like Rosie the Riveter. And we have a newsletter that you can go to www.theriveter.co to sign up for. I love our newsletter. I'm proud of it. And then you can find me at Amy_K_Nelson on all the channels.
I love it. Okay. Well, before we let you go though, you still have to answer the one question. And that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I've ever received is to take the first offer. I remember once, I think it was like the in-house legal job. I got the offer and it was pretty good. And a woman was like, well, that's great. Just take it. And I was like, no, I'm going to negotiate. She's like, well, what if they don't like that? And I was like, well, what if they don't? Always negotiate. Yeah. Never take the first offer on anything in life. Always negotiate.
I love it. It's a good one. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Justice. Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And also share this episode with a friend who needs that extra push to own their success. If you want more strategy stories and exclusive content, follow us on TikTok at Taking Care of Lady Business, on Instagram at thejustice.dept and Jennifer Justice L, or visit our website at thejusticedept.com. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC.